She walked to her car. The night turned fatal. That's not just a title. It's the terrifying truth of what happened to 18-year-old Lauren Burk. It's the kind of story that gets called one of the most disturbing murder cases for a reason, because it takes something completely ordinary and shows you how easily it can shatter. This is the story of a college freshman, a routine evening, and a predator hiding in plain sight. March 4th, 2008, was a quiet Tuesday on the beautiful campus of Auburn University in Alabama. The kind of spring evening that feels full of promise. Students were heading back from the library, making plans, living the life that Lauren Burk had just begun. Lauren was a freshman from Marietta, Georgia. She was bright, well-liked, and had recently pledged the Delta Gamma sorority, diving headfirst into the exciting new world of college. She'd called her parents not long before. Her conversations filled with the normal stuff classes were tough, but good. She loved her new friends. She was finding her way. She was, by every account, a young woman with her whole future wide open. That night, Lauren finished up at the library. She gathered her books, stepped out into the cooling air, and started the short, familiar walk to the parking lot where her black Honda Civic was waiting. It's a walk every college student has done 1,000 times. You don't think about it. On a campus like Auburn's, you feel safe, surrounded by people and light. But in the shadows of that parking lot, a man was waiting. He was 23, an Army veteran from a nearby town with a dishonorable discharge. What he was doing there, we may never fully understand. But his intention became horrifyingly clear the second Lauren reached her car. He stepped out with a gun. There was no argument, no demand. Just sudden, absolute terror. He forced Lauren into the driver's seat of her own car at gunpoint. In a heartbeat, her world of textbooks and friendships vanished. She was now a prisoner, and he was driving her away from everything she knew. For the next 30 minutes, Lauren was trapped in a rolling nightmare as Lockhart drove her car into the dark rural backroads of Lee County. During that drive, he robbed her. He assaulted her. It was a brutal, sustained attack, a predator exerting total control. But Lauren Burk was not someone who would give up. Even in that abject horror, a fierce will to survive took over. As the car sped along, she saw a desperate chance. In a move that would define her memory forever, she made a decision. She reached for the door and threw herself from the moving vehicle. Think about the sheer, staggering courage that took. The car was moving. The pavement was hard and unforgiving. But in her mind, anything was better than staying with that man. It was a breathtaking leap for life. Her predator did not let her go. Courtney Lockhart stopped the car. He turned around, and he shot her. The medical evidence would later be crystal clear. Lauren Burk was shot once in the upper back at close range. The bullet tore through her lung. A passerby found her on the shoulder of Alabama Highway 147, a quiet road now stained with violence. She was barely clinging to life. Paramedics raced her to the hospital, but the damage was too severe. Lauren Burk died from her wounds. Her story, which began with such ordinary promise, ended in violent silence on a dark roadside. But the horror of that night had one more calculated act. While Lauren fought for her life miles away, Predator was executing a plan. He drove her car all the way back to the Auburn campus. He got gasoline. He deliberately drenched her Honda Civic in fuel and set it on fire. The flames were a cold, deliberate attempt to burn away any evidence, to erase his connection to the crime. By morning, the news was a tremor of fear through Auburn. A student was dead, murdered. Her car was a smoldering shell. A killer was on the loose. Overnight, the simple walk to your car became a scenario that played out in every student's mind. Parents called in a panic. The Auburn family was wounded and demanding answers. The police had 2 crime scenes and a shell casing. They had a community looking over its shoulder. And they had a monster to catch. The manhunt was on. And as detectives would soon discover, this killer had made a critical, arrogant mistake in the hours after the murder. Mistake that would lead them right to his door. The pressure on law enforcement was immediate and immense. This wasn't just another case file. It was a violent rupture in the heart of their community. The Auburn Police and Lee County Sheriff's Office formed a task force, knowing they had to move fast. Fear was contagious, and they had to stop it. Their first major break didn't come from a high-tech lab or a lucky tip. It came from the killer's own staggering arrogance. Just hours after he shot Lauren Burk, someone used her debit card. Let that sink in for a second. This man had just murdered an 18-year-old girl. He had left her body on the side of a highway. And instead of running, instead of hiding, one of his next moves was to stop at an ATM and try to get cash out of her account. The cold-blooded nerve of it is almost hard to believe. It shows a mind that saw Lauren not as a human being he had destroyed, but as a resource to be exploited. It was a brazen, stupid mistake, but for detectives, it was a gift. That ATM had a surveillance camera. The grainy, green-tinted footage gave them their first good look at the man they were hunting. It wasn't a perfect picture, but it was a face. He was no longer just a shadow in a witness description. He was a real person. This digital clue, combined with witness accounts from the campus area, quickly led investigators to focus on a name: Courtney Lockhart. They pulled his record. He was a local from Smith's Station. He was an Army veteran with a dishonorable discharge. He fit the description. He knew the area. The pieces were lining up. And now they had his face on a bank tape. For 3 tense days, Lockhart was a ghost. The community was on edge, checking locks, walking in groups, while police worked around the clock to find his trail. Then, on March 7th, the break came. Police in Phoenix City, Alabama, a town not far from Auburn, spotted a car that matched the description from their all-points bulletin. Officers moved in for a routine traffic stop. The driver's response was anything but routine. He hit the gas. A high-speed chase erupted through the streets of Phoenix City, a blur of sirens, screeching tires, and swerving cars. For the officers involved, the adrenaline was mixed with a grim sense of purpose. Was this Lauren Burk's killer in that car? Was he about to slip through their fingers? The chase didn't last long. It ended with a crash. Police vehicles swiftly surrounded the suspect's car. Officers approached with weapons drawn, voices sharp. The driver was dragged out, pinned to the pavement, and handcuffed. It was Courtney Lockhart. The hunt was over. A search of his person and his car turned up items that belonged to Lauren Burk. The connection was now physical, undeniable. The ghost had a name, a face, and was now sitting in the back of a patrol car. For Lauren's family, it was a moment of grim, shaky relief. The predator who took their daughter was in a cage. The immediate fear for the community could begin to subside. But for the detectives, the harder work was just beginning. Putting someone in a cell is one thing. Proving exactly what they did and why in a court of law is a different battle. They had to piece together the 30-minute nightmare inside Lauren's car. And to do that, they had to confront the story that Courtney Lockhart was already preparing to tell. In the stark, silent box of an interrogation room, Courtney Lockhart began to talk. He didn't try to deny everything outright. In fact, he gave detectives the skeleton of the crime. He admitted to being in the parking lot. He admitted to confronting Lauren. He admitted to forcing her into her car at gunpoint and to robbing her. He was handing over the undeniable framework, perhaps thinking it would make him seem cooperative or lay groundwork for a defense. But then, he carefully tried to sculpt the ending. The gunshot, he claimed, was a tragic accident. His story was that after Lauren's brave, desperate leap from the car, there was a struggle, a physical confrontation. In the chaos and panic, the gun just went off. It was a robbery that had spiraled horribly out of control, a moment where a terrible mistake was made. He was trying to sand down the sharp, jagged edges of a premeditated murder into the softer, more defensible shape of manslaughter, a crime of passion or a tragic error. It was a calculated story, designed to inject doubt and appeal to emotion. But it immediately crashed into two immovable walls: forensic science and the chilling logic of his own actions. First, the science. The autopsy report on Lauren Burk was definitive. The single bullet entered her upper back. The trajectory was clear. She was shot from behind while facing away from her attacker. Medical experts would later testify this was not a wound consistent with a close-quarters, chaotic struggle over a weapon. This was a shot aimed at the back of a fleeing person. The clinical term for that is not accidental discharge. It is an execution. Second, his own behavior. Let's walk through what Courtney Lockhart did in the hours after that gunshot echoed on Highway 147. He did not call 911. He did not rush to a hospital claiming a horrific accident. He did not turn himself in, consumed by remorse. Here is what he did do. Step by deliberate step. 1. He got back into Lauren Burk's car. 2. He drove that car roughly 20 miles, all the way back to the Auburn University campus. 3. He obtained gasoline. 4. He deliberately poured that gasoline over Lauren's Honda Civic. 5. He set it on fire and let it burn. These are not the frantic, scattered actions of someone reeling from a shocking, unintended death. These are sequential, purposeful acts. They are the hallmark of someone trying to destroy evidence, to sever a tangible link to the crime. The burning car wasn't an afterthought. It was a planned conclusion. In the eyes of the law, it screams consciousness of guilt. An innocent person, or even one responsible for a genuine accident, does not methodically try to incinerate the primary evidence. So if the accident was a lie, what was the truth? Lockhart himself gave the starting point: robbery. He wanted money. He saw an opportunity. But in the closed space of that car, the motive twisted into something darker. The abduction, the terrorizing drive, this became about more than cash. It was about domination, about asserting absolute control over another human being. And when that control was violently challenged, when Lauren Burk showed unimaginable courage by throwing herself from the car, Lockhart faced a choice. He could have taken her leap as his chance to escape. She was injured, alone on a dark road. He could have vanished. He chose the other path. He stopped the car. He turned around. He took aim. He shot her in the back. In that moment, the motive completed its terrible evolution, from robbery to control, and finally, to the silencing of a witness. He wasn't ending a struggle. He was finishing what he started. The prosecution's case was now a powerful, coherent story. A planned robbery that escalated to a predatory kidnapping, then to a deliberate murder, followed by a calculated cover-up. The evidence was overwhelming, but securing a conviction was only the first summit. The far more difficult climb, the fight over what his life was now worth, was about to begin in a courtroom, where a legal drama would unfold that would stun everyone watching. 2 years of painful waiting passed before Courtney Lockhart stood trial in a Lee County courtroom in 2010. For Lauren Burk's family, it was a brutal, public reliving of their worst nightmare. They had to sit and listen as prosecutors methodically laid out the horrific details of their daughter's final half hour, the abduction, the forensic evidence, the lie of the accident. The science was undeniable. The timeline was airtight. The defense, facing this mountain of evidence, made a strategic retreat. They didn't try to prove innocence. Their sole mission was to save Lockhart's life in the coming sentencing phase. They leaned into his story of a robbery gone wrong, a tragic mistake. They talked about his background, hoping to paint a picture of a flawed man, not a monster, in the hopes the jury would choose prison over death. Then, the courtroom heard from Lauren's parents. This is where the legal case met human grief. They spoke not of evidence, but of their daughter. They spoke of her laugh, her future, the empty space in their lives that would never be filled. They gave the jury the true, immeasurable cost of Lockhart's actions. It was devastating testimony. The jury deliberated on guilt. Their verdict was swift and unanimous: guilty of capital murder, kidnapping, and robbery. But in Alabama, that verdict triggers a second, agonizing decision by the same jury: life in prison without parole or death. This is a moral weight heavier than judging facts. After more deliberation, the jury returned with their recommendation. They voted for life. Life without the possibility of ever walking free. For Lauren's family, the emotional blow was profound. He was guilty of intentional, brutal murder, yet the community, through its jury, had chosen to let him live. It felt like the ultimate value of their daughter's life had been discounted. The justice felt hollow, incomplete. Then came the legal shock that defines this case to this day. Alabama is one of the few states where a judge can override a jury's sentencing recommendation in a capital case. Judge Jacob Walker III held that power. He reviewed the facts: the stalking, the execution-style shooting of a fleeing girl, the cold act of burning her car. He saw calculated brutality, not a tragic mistake. Judge Walker overrode the jury. He sentenced Courtney Lockhart to death. The reaction split public opinion. Some saw it as a brave judicial act, finally aligning the punishment with the horror of the crime. Others saw it as a dangerous undermining of the jury system, placing ultimate power in one person's hands. For Lockhart, it meant a cell on Alabama's death row. For Lauren's family, it was a stronger societal condemnation. But no sentence could bring peace or their daughter back. The legal battle was now guaranteed to stretch for years, a torturous series of appeals that would force the family to hear Lauren's name argued in court again and again. Each appeal was a fresh wound. Yet through it all, higher courts consistently upheld two things: the guilty verdict was sound, and the judge's death sentence, while controversial, was within the law. While this protracted legal drama played out in court documents and appellate hearings, the real-world impact of Lauren Burk's story was already taking root back on the Auburn campus, changing the environment for every student who came after her. Today, the walk across Auburn's campus feels different because of Lauren Burk. It's in the brighter lights that now flood the parking decks after dark. It's in the prominent signs for safe ride programs and the heightened awareness during student orientation. Her death forced a painful, necessary reckoning with campus safety, sparking changes that have undoubtedly protected others. In this terrible way, Lauren's story built a legacy of security, a quiet, living monument to a life cut short. For her sisters in Delta Gamma and the friends who knew her, the legacy is more personal. They work to remember the Lauren who lived her smile, her spirit, the sound of her laughter. They hold on to the person, fighting to ensure she is not defined solely by the horror of her final moments. This is the enduring challenge and the heart of the story. It's easy for the public to see Lauren Burk as a true crime case, a headline, a statistic of violence. But for her family, she will always be the girl in the photographs on the mantle, their daughter, the one whose future was stolen along with her life. Their loss isn't just for a single day in 2008. It's for every birthday, every holiday, every ordinary moment she should have been there for, stretching across a lifetime that never was. Courtney Lockhart remains on Alabama's death row. The slow machinery of appeals continues. One day, that legal saga may reach a final, grim conclusion. But Lauren's story doesn't end there. It echoes. It echoes in the subconscious pause of a student walking alone at night who then decides to call a friend. It echoes in campus safety meetings where her name is invoked not for pity, but for purpose. It echoes most powerfully in the quiet of a family home where a mother and father navigate a world forever dimmed by her absence. She walked to her car. The night turned fatal. We remember these words because they capture the disturbing, random vulnerability we all share. It was a normal Tuesday. A short walk. The terrifying truth is that it could happen to anyone. But let's not end with just fear. Let's end with a call to care. Care for yourself by staying aware. Care for your friends by walking together, by looking out for one another. In a world that can be dark, be someone who brings light and pays attention. And above all, remember the person behind the headline. Remember Lauren Burk. Not just as a victim, but as a vibrant, promising young woman whose story now reminds us to hold our loved ones close, to cherish the ordinary moments, and to never take a simple walk for granted. Her memory asks us to be better, to be safer, and to look out for each other. That is how a tragedy leaves a mark of hope. Thank you for watching.